The world has been in uproar since Donald Trump returned to power for a second time. In just a few years, Trump has changed many things the world has become accustomed to. He withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreement. He suspended American foreign aid. The most recent executive order, the suspension of USAID funding, has sent ripples across the globe. Almost everyone has criticized Trump's move, but there is one African leader in the Sahel who does not mind. In fact, you could say he applauds the decision. That leader is President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. Traore sees Trump's decision as a chance for African nations to be independent and self-reliant. This is why he has made new moves to boost rice production in Burkina Faso. Under the order of President Traore, the governor of Hautes-Bassins, Madame Mariama Keïta, visited the wheat fields in the Bazin Plain on the 31st of August, 2025. The ongoing work there proves what Traore has been saying all along. Burkina Faso and other African nations do not need financial aid from the United States or from any other power. Right now, Burkina Faso is on the verge of history with its wheat and rice fields. These crops, once harvested, may achieve full rice self-sufficiency. The plants are not just growing, they are flourishing, and it is thanks to Traore's massive investment in the sector. When he first came to power, Traore spoke of the need for Burkina Faso to secure its own food supply. You see, the nation has fertile land for rice production, yet for decades, it was among the top importers of foreign rice. Rice is a staple food in Burkina Faso. Demand has always been high, but for President Traore, importing rice when the land is fertile is not a smart idea. Instead, his vision is simple: grow at home, feed the nation, and never again depend on others. So he decided to act. In 2025, President Ibrahim Traore personally handed over 20 optical sorters to rice mills across the country. The ceremony took place at the Regional Directorate of Agriculture in Hautes-Bassins. The equipment, valued at 180 million CFA francs excluding taxes, was acquired by the National Office of Major Projects. Its purpose to improve the quality and competitiveness of locally produced rice. Speaking at the event, the president stressed the importance of better rice processing. We are officially handing over these sorters to you for the benefit of cooperatives and hardworking rice producers. From now on, we want rice that is clean, free of impurities, and of the best quality, he declared. Before we continue, a reminder: like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss updates like this. Dr. Abdur-Rahman Keïta, special advisor to the president on agricultural issues, described the machines as strategic for boosting national production. He explained that Burkina Faso's rice has often struggled to compete, partly due to weak sorting capacity that affects final quality. These are the latest generation optical sorters, he said. They have 64 million megapixel sensors, able to detect impurities and calibrate rice grains. The 20 machines differ in capacity. Some process 1.6 tons per hour. Others can handle 4 to 6 tons per hour. Dr. Keïta also confirmed training programs will be launched, so producers can use the machines effectively. Representing rice processors, Seydou Konate, president of the Hautes-Bassins Rice Innovation Platform, expressed gratitude. With these advanced machines, it is a great relief for us, he said. Our rice will have nothing to envy compared to imported rice. National rice will gain quality and competitiveness, and rice made in Burkina Faso will carry much greater value. Now, it has been almost 1 year since President Traore delivered this equipment, and his efforts are already bearing fruit. During a visit to the cooperative farm, a 450-hectare site, with 100 hectares dedicated to wheat, the president of the society welcomed the results. We are mobilized and ready to do more, he said. He praised the government's initiatives and the support given to local producers. This first experience will allow farmers to learn and to improve wheat and rice production in the years to come. The governor said she was satisfied with the crops. I saw wheat plants with strong growth at the sprouting stage. This is proof that producers have followed the advice of agricultural technicians, she noted. She encouraged farmers to double their efforts and to help achieve food self-sufficiency. Now here is where it gets interesting. Luland du Sahel, a wheat flour production plant, announced to the governor that they are committed to buying all wheat production for this season. This is remarkable. Not only is the region producing wheat, but factories are ready to use local wheat instead of importing from abroad. While there is still much to be done, it is clear that Burkina Faso is moving toward food self-sufficiency. Between 2022, when Traore came into power, and 2025, rice production rose from 280,000 metric tons to 326,000 metric tons. This is remarkable progress. And it is not just rice and wheat. According to the report, agriculture will contribute 16.4% to Burkina Faso's GDP in 2023. The economy will grow from $18.7 billion to $22.0 billion. Tomato production will increase from 316,000 tons in 2022 to 359,000 tons in 2025. Millet production will increase from 908,000 tons in 2022 to 1.09 million tons in 2025. Remarkable again. All of this is thanks to massive investment by President Traoré. His vision is clear: African nations must be self-reliant and independent. He evaluated the resources that God has blessed Burkina Faso with, and he decided to add value to them at home, instead of depending on so-called advanced economies for support. This is why Traoré applauds President Trump's decision to suspend funding for USAID. But what exactly is USAID? And why are so many people angry with Trump's move? From the very start of his campaign, Trump made it clear: overseas spending must follow his America First approach. Just last week, he wrote on Truth Social, "USAID spending is totally unexplainable. Close it down." The United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, was set up in the early 1962 to manage American foreign aid. USAID runs humanitarian aid programs on behalf of the US government. It employs around 10,000 people, 2/3 of whom work overseas. According to the Congressional Research Service, it has offices in more than 60 countries and works in many more. Most of the work on the ground, however, is done by other organizations, contracted and funded by USAID. The range of activities is vast. USAID provides food in nations where people are starving. It also operates the world's gold standard famine detection system, using data to predict where shortages may emerge. Much of USAID's budget goes to health. It funds polio vaccinations in countries where the disease still circulates. It helps stop the spread of viruses that could cause a pandemic. According to US government data, America spent $68 billion on international aid in 2023. That money is spread across several departments, but USAID's budget alone was around $40 billion. Most of it went to Asia, Africa, and Europe, with large portions directed to humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. This is why analysts warn that Africa will suffer heavily from the suspension. President Trump argued that USAID is not a valuable use of taxpayer money. His administration released a list of projects it claimed were wasteful. These included $1.5 million to an LGBTQ group in Serbia, $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, and $7 million for tourism in Egypt. But Trump is not the only critic. Elon Musk, the world's richest billionaire and a close Trump supporter, has also attacked USAID. He went as far as to call the agency a criminal organization. He praised Trump's decision to suspend its funding. Since the executive order, the world has been in uproar. Global humanitarian aid has been disrupted. Staff were put on leave. The future of the agency is now uncertain. And in Africa, the impact was immediate. Much of USAID's money had supported health programs including South Africa's HIV/AIDS initiative. Just days after Trump's order, Hawaii 5 clinics began closing. Training programs were canceled, and trans health centers in South Africa were forced to shut their doors. Within a single week of Donald Trump's return to the White House, the shockwaves reached Africa. The Wits Reproductive Health and HIV Institute in South Africa, known for serving marginalized groups, suddenly shut down its key populations program clinics. The reason? A direct USAID stop order. And this was just the beginning. Shortly after, South Africa's own Medical Research Council announced the cancellation of a long-planned grant-writing workshop funded by the U.S. National Institutes of Health. At the same time, organizations supported by PEPFAR, the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, received cold, formal notices. The message was brutal in its clarity. All activities must stop. That included prevention campaigns, community testing, and even the distribution of life-saving antiretroviral medicine. PEPFAR's reach is enormous. It supports HIV treatment and public health campaigns in Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and beyond. For nearly 2 decades, millions have survived because of its funding. Experts quickly warned, this freeze would not only halt progress against HIV, AIDS, but could also disrupt Africa's ability to respond to future outbreaks, Ebola, Marburg, or any other deadly virus that respects no borders. But while panic spread in medical circles, some African health experts saw Trump's decision as a brutal wake-up call. Angela Agee, assistant professor at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington, explained clearly, African countries will ultimately have to depend less on foreign donors and invest more in their own health systems with efficient public finance management. Her statement struck a chord because this is precisely the message President Ibrahim Traore has been repeating again and again, that Africa, despite its vast human capital and natural resources, remains shackled to dependency on the West, and that dependency is both dangerous and absurd. Trump's order, in effect, made one thing painfully clear: dependency has consequences. Imagine a scenario where African countries were not reliant on Western aid. Imagine a continent that had invested in its own health systems, its own industries, its own financial safety nets. Trump's directive would not have shaken the foundations of African public health at all. Instead, today, many nations scramble to cope with the fallout. Hospitals beg for drugs. NGOs plead for exceptions. Communities wonder if tomorrow they will still have access to medicine. And yet, here is something the mainstream narrative rarely admits. Africa's dependence on Western aid is not absolute. Yes, some elites and governments benefit enormously from US and European funding. Yes, donor-driven programs exist, but the majority of ordinary Africans, they barely feel the impact. Why? Because outside of health and humanitarian programs, much of the so-called development aid has long been wasted, or worse, stolen. Money meant to alleviate poverty too often disappears into the pockets of ministers, bureaucrats, and their cronies. The cycle of looting is almost institutionalized. The result: millions of Africans remain in poverty, while leaders enrich themselves with villas in Europe, luxury cars, and offshore bank accounts. Transparency International and other watchdog groups have documented countless shocking cases. Funds meant for hospitals vanish. Supplies meant for schools are diverted. Grain meant for the hungry is sold on the black market. Consider Ethiopia under the Marxist dictatorship of Mengistu Haile Mariam. Donor funds for famine relief were manipulated. Instead of feeding the starving, money bought trucks for forced resettlement. In some cases, aid was withheld from entire regions simply to punish political opponents. Ethiopia is not alone. In Congo, food donations were sold, and the proceeds were used to buy an arms factory from Italy. Even Mauritius, considered one of Africa's more stable nations, diverted rice donations meant for the poor into tourist hotels. And in Nigeria, during the COVID-19 pandemic, warehouses full of relief food were discovered hidden, hoarded, released only when politicians wanted to buy loyalty from voters. The donors know this. The World Bank, the European Union, USAID, and others, they all know how much aid is lost to corruption. And yet they continue sending money, branding it as partnership for development. But if they truly wanted Africa to grow, would they not have changed their approach decades ago? Why repeat a system that clearly does not work? The answer is uncomfortable. Aid is not charity. Aid is a tool of exploitation. Consider the 2014 report. Africa received about $32.7 billion in aid. But that same year, more than $99 billion was extracted through debt repayments, through multinational corporate profits, through illicit financial flows. This means that Africa, on balance, lost more than $85 billion every single year. The truth is stark. It is not the West that aids Africa. It is Africa that aids the West. Aid does not help Africa develop. It helps to underdevelop Africa. Most Western aid comes with strings-attached conditions that give foreign corporations access to Africa's resources, markets, and policies. And aid breeds dependency. It keeps African states vulnerable, easy to pressure, easy to control. Look at Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, Rwanda, and Burundi in 2009. Foreign aid made up between 50% and 92% of their entire government budgets. Imagine a household depending on outsiders for 9 out of every $10 spent. That is the level of control. That is why aid is so dangerous. This is exactly what happened after coups in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. Western aid was suddenly cut, and instantly, governments were paralyzed. Aid had become a weapon, just like sanctions, a tool of punishment and control. And the hidden cost? Innovation crushed, local business destroyed, Markets distorted. Entrepreneurship suffocated. Take Kenya. The World Food Program floods the market with imported corn. Much of it ends up sold cheaply on the black market. Local farmers cannot compete. They abandon their fields. And when the next famine comes, Kenya has no reserves. It is a cycle and it is deadly. Or consider Nigeria's textile industry. In 1998, it employed 137,000 workers. By 2017, only 57,000 remained. What happened? Europe's second-hand clothing industry. Mountains of used garments were shipped to Africa and sold cheaply. Africans, struggling with low incomes, bought European clothes instead of Nigerian-made ones. Factories shut down. Jobs vanished. Local industry collapsed. This is the hidden face of aid. Behind the glossy language of development is a system that leaves Africa weaker. A system that creates dependence, not independence. But here is the truth, Traore, and others like him, now insist upon Africa does not need foreign aid. Without it, African nations would be forced to build their own revenue streams. They would have no choice but to trade with one another, to invest in local industry, to build infrastructure with their own hands. When free food stops arriving, farmers will return to their land. When donated clothes dry up, tailors and factories will reopen. When grants end, governments will finally have to learn how to tax fairly and manage finances responsibly. Africa will not collapse without aid. On the contrary, it may finally rise. So the question becomes, is aid a blessing, or is it Africa's greatest curse? Now, we turn to you. What do you think? Should Africa cut its dependency once and for all? Should the West keep sending money that fuels corruption and dependence? Or should a new path be forged, one of independence, sovereignty, and self-reliance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the debate over aid is not just about money. It is about Africa's future. It is about whether the continent stands forever as a dependent child or rises as a sovereign equal in the world.